Hello, I'm Ángel Vázquez from the University of the Balearic Island in Spain, and I'm going to present this communication co-authored with my colleague Maria Antonia Manacero Mas about the relevance of science education second project about the Spanish students' voices on their school science class. This communication is focused on affective and attitudinal goals related to science, technology, engineering, mathematics and medicine education, which had been investigated for years. The perceived low relevance of science education is probably the biggest obstacle to good science learning and to interest in science subjects. So in the long run, this lack of relevance increases gender differences, decreases scientific vocations and science and technology literacy, and harms the personal, social and democratic interests of citizens and society. So, positive attitudes toward science are important by themselves and have general value as learning objectives in school education. If we watch at large-scale international studies such as TIMSS and PISA, they focus on students' cognitive science performance, and affective factors are not a key concern for these large-scale international studies. However, relating the results of TIMSS and PISA scoring tables with affective results, we can check that countries that score low in interest and attitudes towards science are just the top countries scoring in TIMSS and PISA. So this fact suggests an additional strong reason to also address the affective factors related to science education. In fact, PISA and TIMSS waves, the last waves, acknowledge the importance of socio-affective factors for educational success. For instance, PISA 2018 reports that hardly 32% of Spanish students expect to work in science-related jobs. Nearly 20 years ago, the relevance of science education, Rose 2002, gave voice to students to diagnose their attitudes to science and technology worldwide. Western countries displayed an overall pattern of disenchantment with science and technology and displayed also big gender differences. School science was perceived as less interesting than other school subjects and unimportant for future jobs and careers. The science career gap was dramatic in Western countries and especially for girls. The gender difference increased with the level of development of the countries. In the case of Spain, teens fit somewhat this pattern, yet the gender gap has got the lowest differences among Western countries. Some current literature confirms that these challenges may still persist in science education, and in the last months, a new wave called Rose Second, thereafter Roses 2020, has been launched worldwide to update young people's attitudes towards science. So the importance of this new Roses project tries to review the attitudes of young people with an updated, renewed and solid framework. So this paper aims to present some early results of Spain's students' perceptions on science classes and compared across some variables and with ROSE 2002. The participants in this study were 92 students who validly answered the ROSE 2020 questionnaire in Spain. They were approximately split in halves, 48 boys and 40 women, and 4 leave blank. The average age of the participants were about 15.3 years, which is the age of the sample of ROSE project. These participants are attending 2 public and 1 public-funded private secondary schools. They live at a small city and the suburb and the center of another big city, and they participate through whole group class, which balances experiences across the independent variables such as gender, choice, etc. The core materials of the ROSE 2020 project is a long questionnaire with many items on science affective variables. The questionnaire was developed by a group of science education experts and involved over 100 items categorized in 8 scales on different issues to gather the students' experiences on these different issues. So my science class is one of these scales that involves 12 items and is the point for this communication. The item wording in the questionnaire is direct, simple, short, and avoids negative statements. The students are asked to answer by ticking the appropriate box on a 4-point Likert scale, from disagree to agree according to their appreciation of each item. The procedures involved the data gathering which took place during the time of COVID-19 pandemic from April until June 2020, when the schools were closed and the students were taught online. So the students' responses on each item are codified from 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 points to compute weighted average that allows simple and faithful representation of students' opinions. The students anonymously answered the Spanish ROSE 2020 questionnaire as a class assignment led by their teachers and were allowed to leave some items unanswered. The researchers collaborated with some secondary school teachers to manage the administration, the online links, and the reports on students' questions during the project. So this is the descriptive statistics for student responses to the 12th item of the scale My Science class. The first item is the only with a negative format, so this means that its score must be reversed to be understood. And the last item is a new item which is not shared with ROSE 2002. The highest average agreement was on item 2 about the interest on science education, and item 7 as the stimulation of science classes on curiosity of the student, and the lowest average score were on items 10 to become a scientist and 11 to get a job in technology. Most items display non-significant differences between Rose 2002 and Roses 2020, except items 8 and 12. 8 relates to the importance of science for our way of living, and 12 to understand sustainability solutions. And one of the main remarkable things is that the Spanish girls outperform boys on their wish to become a scientist or to get a job in technology. So this picture displays more clearly all the features that has been commented previously, the maximum scores and the differences about the wish to become a scientist or to get a job in technology, where girls outperform boys, and those undecided. And this picture shows clearly the differences between these three groups. So the group with the highest scores is clearly those about the preferences on science classes items, is the group of those who are decided to select the science subject in the future if the possibility is done. The last comparison displays the results for the 11 items that are shared between Roses 2020 and Roses 2002, and also this picture is clear about the differences between these two waves. The most relevant thing is that students in this new wave, Roses 2020, are higher than the scores of the students in the previous wave about 20 years ago. The differences are non-significant except the item 2 about the interest of science as a subject in school science and the science classes. So the profiles among these two waves are quite parallel for both waves, and the student willingness to be a scientist or to have a job in technology are roughly the same at both waves. So to conclude, the main findings here is that we have got overall similar profile of a student's opinion on school science classes that have already been got in Rose 2002. The highest score indicator placed at the same item, interest, importance and curiosity, and the lowest score indicators are also on the same items, which is the vocational science gap, the intention to be a scientist or to get a job in technology, and in general, Rose's 2020 students' scores are higher than Rose 2002 score for most indicators, and small gender differences. And the most notable finding is that Spanish girls outperform boys on liking to become a scientist or to get a job in technology. And students expressing intentions to choose a science class subject next year significantly outperform mates on most items of my science classes scale. So, thank you very much for your attention, and these are also conclusions related with the aims of the IOST 2021. Thank you very much.